friends. My name is Jeff Cote. I am the Occidental Taoist. So this morning we're going to continue some of what we've been doing, really working on more of these fundamentals, these basic practices that are foundational to develop the body structures, the body control, the chi awareness, and the body mechanics that Wuxing Pai requires for the style of both Tai Chi and Bagua, as well as the Qigong elements that are helpful for health, longevity, pliability, strength, and endurance, and overall vitality and balance. So today we're going to introduce also probably the Iron Dragon Qigong as part of the swimming dragon body Tao, because they are usually done as a yin-yang pair in practice as part of our warm-up. And then we'll continue on with the fundamental elements of the basic form, the very beginner form, which is 4 moves. We'll flow through that a few times and begin to look at the very next move in that sequence, or the very next move in the next sequence, because that is a whole little mini form that you can do, 4 moves to each side, and you're done. Or you can do those first 4 moves to one side and continue on through another 4, 5 moves, really, with the closing through that whole side, and then repeat that whole thing and mirror it on the other side, and that becomes the short mirror form. And you end up with a total of like 17 moves, and that's another good sort of next step. I'm not trying to rush through that, and we're going to spend a goodly amount of time really continuing to examine these basic fundamental movements and the basic practices, including flow qigong, swimming dragon body Tao Yin, dragon qigong, circling palms, dragon rolling pearl exercise, and then the fundamental warm-ups, the qigong, excuse me, the body training exercises that prepare for practice and prepare ourselves for a lifetime of vitality. Okay, so we're going to start off feet roughly shoulder width parallel. Find the triangle of the foot, which is that portion of the foot in which your body weight would be. We don't want to be forward of the ball and socket joint. In fact, we'd rather not be on the ball and socket, or the ball of the foot, rather, because then it tends to tense the shins. At the same time, we don't want to be sitting back on the heels. We want to find that sweet spot in the triangle where we can be active and come up easily without having to make a huge shift forward or a massive change in body weight. Right? At the same time, we're really grounded and stable and have a dynamic relationship with the earth. From there, we're going to pay attention to the hips and the knees and make sure we have a soft buoyancy. The tailbone should be extended gently downward, and the spine elongated by ever so slightly dropping the chin and imagining as if you're being lifted through the bipod point at the top of the head. This opens up the back of the neck and allows the spine to relax and drop. Follow the Jiang points here at the top of the shoulders, straight down into the ball and socket joints of the hips. And both the center line and these right and left channels and the torso should be able to feel like they move straight up and down, but they're not going like this and tilting at angles or arcing in the middle to make this fold. And we want to have a nice straight up and down relationship. We're staying in the same point in the center of the triangle of the foot. That way, even if I'm down here, I can still come up on those heels really easily for quick movement. Okay? And a lot of that is just about learning to really sit into your legs. Let your legs do the work. These guys get strong because the yin channels and the yang channels of the legs are very, very powerful. They do an awful lot for us. The yin channel, the root vitality, is very powerfully augmented by these yin channels of the legs here becoming strong in chi and blood flow. So this gentle extension of the tailbone should help us feel where our pelvis is. We should align it in such a way that the bowl shape of the pelvis that supports the dantian can be maneuvered so it's directly under the center of the chest, middle dantian. And then the same thing from middle dantian to center of the head. Nice open relationship. You want to feel what it feels like between the ball and socket joints of the hips, the shoulders, or the middle down chin and lower down chin, and middle down chin and upper down chin. Notice if we're holding. Notice if we're tensing. We're trying to want to drain it down and let it drop through the legs, through the triangle of the feet. Dynamic activities going on here. And I always check things like that occasionally. Like, am I holding? Have I shifted back into my heels? Do I have to make adjustments? Or am I staying true to the principles of the posture? Place the tongue lightly on the roof of the mouth. And just check that central equilibrium. Check those right and left channels right down all the way into the ground. And the relationship of the center of the chest to the arms and hands. Relaxed and open, propping, folding in. What are we doing here? What activities are going on and coming out of the center line and these right and left channels? Expressing into the arms. And the relationship of all of that through the whole body to each other. Balance out front to back, left to right, top to bottom, inside, out, center outward, to our personal space with our awareness, and back in. The feeling is reaching out with your feeling awareness to receive information, so it's outreach to receive. Place the tongue lightly under the mouth, as close to the channels. We allow our breath to move in and out through the nose. Breathe deeply into the lower diaphragm. As we do so, what we're going to do is we're going to take what's called Qigong or Jing draw. Gently gather up and inward on the pelvic floor, the perineum. Same thing, very gently in the deep core muscles, the urethral, rectal muscles, the deep core muscles of the whole lower body, lower abdomen, down to the pelvis. So everything gathers towards the chin as you inhale. Now, once you establish that gathering feeling, you don't want to lose it. Never let the perineum just drop and let go. At the same time, we should never be squeezing or contracting. This is going to build up a lot of chi in the lower down chin. As we inhale, our whole body is going to expand. Exhale, release. Let our awareness return back to the inside. Outreach to receive. I let my arms expand in the front sometimes, expand in the sides, side, back to also pressing through my legs. Now, as I practice, I'll do less and less actual pushing, where I'm physically moving. I'm going to apply the pressure, learn how to get a nuanced pressure and even it through the whole leg. So there's still the downward energy force that's part of the expansion. It's still adding to the power of the expansion, but it's not using tension or too much lead or muscular strength. reverse that process. As we inhale, we're going to let everything condense. It's like we're trying to draw our whole body, and our whole body is receiving in condensing the Qigong. On the exhale, we're going to sense a release and outflow. Now on these, if you've done the meridian flow Qigong with me before, whether you know the individual meridians or even just the meridian region, the in meridians of the leg, the in meridians of the arms, the out meridians of the arms, and the out meridians of the legs. If you've got a good sense of that, you practice those a little bit. While doing this, you can be working with that, breathing through those meridians into the dantian and back out, eventually learning how to feel all of them, even the individual ones, and them collectively as in channels, as down channels, and as a whole system within the context of the structural frameworks that are the baseline. Eventually, we start to create a very powerful mental construct that we use to help us align all of these things. Now, whether these things are things or whether they're products of mental construct is kind of irrelevant because they have real impacts on the body. I personally think that they are things, but you don't have to. I didn't always think that. I used to think that until I developed a high level sensitivity, I just thought that it was just a mental construct that was easy to work with my body. It was still very valuable that way, but as my awareness deepened, I began to perceive flow that was present when I wasn't intending to, and where it wasn't flowing. And that helped me start to correct. Back to that, expanding on the exhale, receiving through we're going to bounce. Really feel that straight up and down bounce, the folding of the ball and socket joint, of the hip of the knee, that hinge joint of the knee. Relax the shoulders. You're getting a gentle extension with the arms. You're allowing a lot of free flow through here. Feel all the relationships. Feel the ball and socket joint relationships change in the shoulders and in the hips. Feel your intention of extension. Try to feel your extension all the way through your toes, all the way through your fingers, all the way through the spine. Join with the momentum. There's a natural, when I let this go, there's a natural momentum that doesn't just stop unless I've got a ton of tension. If you're tense, you're going to have that going on. But even it may not be a complete stop. Try to go with the flow. Feel the momentum of it and release it. Grab it down and pull everything down. Release the shoulder blades too. Energy of the bounce should create space. You'll feel your shoulder blade even up off the ground. We're not going to lift it or prop it. We don't want to make it happen. We want to observe the natural tendency of tissues to move freely. We want to let them and guide the flow of that momentum into all the spaces and through those spaces to help create freedom and flow. And then counters. Here I'm trying to keep pelvic structure relatively square. I don't want it to twist too far. I'd like it to not twist at all, but I'm not going to tighten to hold it down. I'm going to try to root and allow the momentum to flow around the ball and socket joint, around the bones, to help release the tissues and allow for free flow of chi, momentum, pliability, strength, power, gravity, all activity. Column strength. And counter columns. may start off where I'm bouncing because I'm trying to learn how to transfer without tension, but eventually we want to drop that bouncing up and down. We start that way and try to work with it up and down, but eventually you're still having it flow through, it's still shifting. You can feel that up and down movement, but that up and down movement moves through you instead of you moving with it. The power of it moves through you. Sometimes the hands face you, sometimes it face out. Play around with that, with both the position of the hand and the changes that occur between the torso through the shoulder all the way to the hand. Feel those spiraling motions. They're an important part of this. And the energy, how this has a quality and nature that is different than this. And relax. Now that whole sequence is really good for activating movement of qi and blood, getting the circulation increasing, warming everything up. You're kind of sinking in, getting ready to kind of work with a lot more internal. We start with really visceral stuff. We get our alignments and everything first. We start with really visceral stuff. Then we move towards subtler. Because we want to activate things first. So then I usually move into one of a number of exercises. I usually do 7 posture standing Qigong, which some of you have seen. Just a basic Wuxing posture, which we did on Tuesday. Jing, which is an empty force practice. It's got some motion, but it's a lot less than what we've been doing. And it's really focused on the internal feeling of the extension of attention to create action. And the idea of resistance, both imagined and real, and learn to play around with that so we can learn to cut down internal resistance. We want to get familiar with the power of our intention and the resistance our bodies generate as a product of how we go about creating that activity, or the activity that expresses the intention. What do I mean by that? It's kind of a lot of statements there, but if we were to start here, I'm going to start with the Jing, and I were to press my hands outward. Okay, if I were to imagine that there was resistance, somebody holding my wrists, whatever, I can notice how I go about things. And then there's how I want to go about things. Most people will go about this by leaning in and pushing with their shoulders. But as you can see, you're kind of cut off from your root. What we want to do is use the natural plasticity of this expansive power that we're working with here to generate the outward action. So I expand through the legs, extending tension, working with the basic principles of the structure. And any resistance I encounter, or even the imagined resistance, and you start with imagined, but eventually, once you work with it enough, this is how you learn to work with real resistance. Okay? But it starts with, what if I were to feel some resistance and I were to push, but I didn't want to tense, I didn't want to fight with it. Can I transfer the pressure of that resistance through me into the ground through proper alignment and still work with my expansion? Now, same thing when I come in. Imagine that resistance then. And I don't want to pull back and lose my balance, but instead use the power of gravity, align with it, let it pull me down and in, and let that instigate the movement. I'm using the power of yin and yang, not their natural expression, and how it moves through me, and aligning my actions with larger forces. The power of inclusion, which is gravity. Earth is including us. And then the power of expansion, which is a product of intent. This is a very yang intent. This is a very yin intent. I want to feel the nature of those changes where I join with something and I create something, even though I'm still borrowing the power of those things I joined with. And eventually I want to not go up and down. Same thing we were just doing. I want to start with feeling the actual real pressure, moving in and down, feeling gravity pull me in, learning to work with these. There's a lot of subtlety to the articulations in the hips. There's this subtle rotation as you fold and allow yourself to drop in. If you hold them, you keep the ball and socket joints and make them try to act like a hinge joint, then what's going to happen is you're going to find things tightening up, and you'll have to lean and do all of that. But if you allow Qua here to really open up, it feels like right from the center of the ball and socket joint just relaxes outward, but it's supported, and there's freedom of motion here. And to exaggerate, there's outward rotation that brings the glutes together and pushes you upward, and expansion, and downward, down and inward rotation of that ball and socket joint. Okay, and we play with that as a product of this. And I make those actions smaller and smaller, but with the same sort of power of intention, as though it is working strongly, but I'm not going to let it move, or I'm not going to move it. I'm going to let that power flow through the action, around the bones, through the soft tissue, channels. A lot to notice here. Even how the weight comes down into the ankle, into the instep. So you're wanting to use the whole foot effectively, right? So that we're working with the power of the body according to its most stable, strong design. And we still have that Qigong going on. We've got that gentle Jing draw, everything gathering towards the dantian. The spine is still elongated, the tailbone is still down, and this big bend back here in the low back should be active. And connected to the bubbling well points here in the sole of the foot, through the body. The Grand Central Station here this morning. Can't complain. That's recycling. Let that go. That's good. Same thing, we're going to go the other way. Noticing what it takes to push out. Imagine feeling that resistance. How would you align and work with your body to transfer that into the ground? Same thing when we draw in. talk a lot about in this particular style of Taiji, a lot of the internal arts, the Taoist training. They'll talk a lot about this concept of Wu Wei, which is often translated as not doing, or non-doing. And we're looking for that, but the real phrase is actually shortened from Wei Wu Wei, doing not doing. We're trying to find that sweet spot between the yin and yang of surrender and action. So one of the reasons why we're working with activating things, imagining that resistance, is to bring that Wei part into the Wei Wu Wei, so that we can learn to be Wu Wei, to be non-doing while doing. This is a phrase Dr. Hua used to say to me all the time, was do less. Do less was a very powerful lesson, and it is endless. In the sense of, while doing this, find a way to do less and accomplish it. Still trying to accomplish the task, being willing to fail to learn how to do less but still accomplish it. Other. Just feel that Wuji posture now and notice how it feels after practicing like that. There's an old classical text called the Neye, my favorite Taoist text. And it literally means inward training or inner training. In there's this section where it says, square up the four limbs, align the body, the breath, inner power will come of its own. And it goes on to speak more, and I'm paraphrasing. At some point I'll probably read it in these classes. But what we're looking to do is to empty inside, to allow structure to support us and the chi to arrive as a support, inner power, mind-body complex acting in complete concert with the life force itself. This position, we're going to do dragon rolling pearls. So we're going to shift, we're going to receive into one leg, expand through the other, and get that rotation. Bring the hand, so I'm moving to my right, I'm going to bring my right hand back, palm out. I'm going to bring the left hand out in front of the right. And I'm going to really focus on this alignment. really receiving into this side, expanding through this side, through the leg, through the arm. It's expansive. This side is more receptive, and it's inward moving. And I want to find that relationship of how yin supports yang. Expansion is built off of receptivity. And the free flow of that yin force on this side. Yin quality. And from here, begin to work with expanding through this side and receiving through this side. Drop that. Let gravity move through this side for part of the expansion. We start to receive weight on the other leg. Turn and expand the right side. Always built on this structure of receiving, getting my alignments, in that sweet spot. It's all built on the structure. If the structure's not right, nothing else can be. You'll be fighting yourself, blocking the flow of chi and the natural flow of momentum. You're no longer aligned with naturalness. Dragon rolls the pearl. If you expand this sphere further and further until it feels like you're no longer working with a sphere in the hands, but you're actually working with the sphere of your intention from your center equal in every direction, it starts to transform from dragon roll the pearl into dragon plays and clouds, plays with clouds. The hands expand. I start to think in terms of my whole body. It's helping to move the entire sphere into the normal. Energy balance, tension through. going on in these. You know, you can make an entire practice session about any one of these. You know, the counterswing series. I've spent upwards of 2 hours just exploring the counterswing series before. Same thing with dragon rolling pearl into dragon blazing clouds. Same with Qigong into Wuxing. You know, these are practices in and of themselves that have value in mastering individually instead of just getting through them. A lot of times when people practice, my observation is that they've got an agenda and they want to get through all these other things. And that's great. And there are times for that. There's an important part about getting everything in. But there is also an equally important part about picking something, breaking it apart, and examining it with enough time, repetition, sinking into a deeper Zen-like awareness that starts to yield fruit that doesn't happen when you just do 10 to 12 repetitions every day. And it's oftentimes, you know, when it's classically taught or trained with somebody, you know, one-on-one rather than a classroom session with a very traditional teacher, that's what they're going to do. They're going to have you take one practice at a time. You know, another thing Dr. Barr used to say to me all the time is, why do two things bad? I love that phrase. It's one of my favorites because it reminds me to, like, be good at the basic thing first. Be really good at the first part of a practice. And then build on that. Then you add a second thing in, and it's built, and that becomes one thing again. And it's what's interesting about it is it also communicates this idea that one of the things we're trying to learn how to do is include everything. All these different practices that we're doing give us body awarenesses and body possibilities of ways of moving and interacting with our physiology, our chi, our intention. And we want to learn how to do them not just individually, but as a whole. So when you feel like you're doing two things, you're doing at least one of them badly. Because when you're doing one thing well, it can be everything. This is how Tai Chi can be included in any one, all of them. Hands, wrists, and fingers. We're going to go through this part fairly quickly so I can do some homework. And we'll see about it. Maybe not Iron Back. We'll do that on Tuesday. Because I wanted to do homework because I haven't been doing that the last couple sessions. Now you notice here, even when I move quicker, I'm still trying to get that sense of the same sense of expansion. What I was doing with this Ling Kong Jing, what I was doing with the counter swing series, the sense of using my intention through my body, through the whole body, even just to move the elbows. I've got power coming in, I've got power going out. It's actively working with the idea of actual power. At the same time, I'm trying to do it effortlessly. Together, always shoulders down, hands go up, shoulder blades go down, always. Away. Even though I went really slow last time and I'm going quicker, I'm doing the same things. Then elbows below shoulders, right? Open up. I want to open up all of this, not one part. Up here, all of this to open up. So the elbows go down, shoulder blades come towards each other in the back. Close. Trunk twist from the center, patting the body. Now we're patting up these right and left channels, which also lets us in channels the torso, front, and the yang channels, the torso, back and side. shoulders, across collarbone and trapezius, center of the chest, something the thymus and thyroid here, right between, trying to get that vibration to spread both down and up. Down to the center of the chest and solar plexus, getting it spread between middle and lower dantians. And all the way down to the lower dantian, patting the waist, patting the daimai, ball and socket joints to the hips. How many of you still have that Qigong, that gentle jing draw on the knee? Try to maintain that. Whenever you're practicing, it's valuable to learn how to keep that as a background, gathering the dantian. Waist rotations. And I usually check in on it repeatedly. Oh yeah, and even after years, I still find myself losing that awareness and letting it drop sometimes. A lot less than I used to. My awareness is moving around my waist with the action and intention. And I'm going to let my awareness drop down in the ball and socket joints of the hips, widen the feet a little bit. Just get that sense of receiving into one leg, extending through the other, and into the ground, and letting that pull and releasing the ball and socket joint. So that pull that ball and socket joint open and make small circles. The other way. Other side. Get that very gentle opening. And ball and socket joint. And the other way. And trying to get them both to work together. The other way. And alternating, so you're turning. Always keeping the knees open. But with the spiral power coming down through the legs. The other one. And shake them out. Patting the legs. Friction rubbing the knee. The other leg. And friction rubbing the knee. And small circles. Feet stay flat on the ground, supporting the kneecaps. You're just making small circles with the knees inside the triangles of the feet. Good way. Deep bends. Weight these triangles of the feet. And circles the ankle and hip. Remember, always, we're never just on one leg. A lot of times people think I'm doing one leg. Some people are focused on the leg they're standing on, other people are focused on the leg that's turning. You're still a whole body here, right? So we're trying to feel all of it within the context of this action. Other way. Foot and ankle. Okay. behind. Now, one of the things I really like to do when doing this, go the other way too. It's hard for me to focus on that and talk about it at the same time. When I practice this, just like when I'm doing a Ling Kong Jing, and I'm imagining that resistance, I'm doing the same thing with my foot. I'm imagining resistance and trying to neutralize any resistance that I would encounter, including my imagined one, through the ground, through and into the ground. So I have to allow my body to make whatever adjustments, because a lot of times we're not holding ourselves in a way that will support that very well. So we have to allow our bodies to change, to adjust, so that we can be in a position where we can utilize the stability of this leg as a grounding point and a neutralizing point to create motion that has tremendous power. Right? And it is especially where it's constantly changing, it's a monumental task. It's simple, but not easy. Leg up, doing the same thing. Cross it behind. Sit down. Up. Up. Down. Go back. Get forward. Out. That leg fall open. I'm trying to rotate and extend. Tension from ground. As soon as you encounter tension anywhere, you'll feel it. You'll throw your balance on. The other side, same thing. Small circles, brushing the grass. Other way. Behind. Other way. Be willing to fail to do it well. Don't just do it. Right? Imagine that subtle resistance. Find the root. Find the way to use that as a good base and neutralize while moving. If it's too challenging because your balance is off, get near. That's a post. I don't know if there's anything inside here. Maybe this tree's a little small, but near a wall. Don't lean on it. The key when you're practicing this stuff to develop really good balance and control of the life force, the chi, the intent, aligning with gravity, all the things that will help create balance. Don't use something as a crutch. Use it as an aid. So if I'm near a wall, I'm going to lightly touch and do everything I need to. If I start to lose my balance, I'm going to use it to help me regain and get back into good position. Right? If we're only focused on accomplishing moving the leg and not falling over, we're going to miss the element that makes this such a powerful exercise, which is that sense of rooting through the leg, creating actual power. that could actually work with something while stabilizing and neutralizing resistance. This is what brings it into the realm of internal training. We have to internalize this process so that it can be effortless, so that when we move our leg out, it has the power of all of this effort and action and practice and precision and borrowing, learning how to use gravity and learning how to neutralize the resistance so that it's there already when you need it. Right? If you're training it, these things as a martial art, if you're training it for just balance and health, still incredibly valuable. All right, elongate the spine, flatten the back, push the knees back, lift the sacrum, fold the waist. Reach out. Take your time. Let everything stretch. Work your way down. Counter tension somewhere. Pause and elongate. Don't be in a hurry to get as low as you can. Find out why that might be as low as you can. So on your way down, notice where things are tight and stretch them first before you get to the bottom. And at some point, you want to keep all the alignments, but let gravity do the work. So you're no longer holding yourself up. You're still intending back of the legs long, the knees back, spine straight and elongated. Fold the knee, right heel, not rounded back to the left. All of this now. Play around with moving towards the ball of the feet. Watch what happens. Towards the heel. Right? When I'm down, one of the other things I like to do is I like to push back, extend the tailbone back. Spine long. Reach out with the hands. Let it all just elongate, like the whole back fascia, the whole back side of the body, just elongate. Forward. And being aware where my center line is, how my weight is coming down from coming through my center line. My center line is working with gravity, and all the weight is coming through the hips. But I'm going to keep my center line aligned, rotate it even, so I'm not shifting my weight, this center line this way. I'm actually trying to keep it in the middle while rotating. Keeping that center line as long and straight as I can make it. Then I might shift one way towards one foot, back towards the other, just feeling what's going on, finding the sweet spot in the center. You'll notice as you do one, back and forth, elongate and open things, lets you get further and further into these works. Reach forward with the front hand. Reach back, back. Back. Align that center. Same thing. Center, vertical center stays between the feet. Center lines, just try to make it straight. Shift my weight over, back. Everything long. Reach with the front hand, reach with the back hand. And we got two dragons circle the pond. So one hand goes in, one hand goes out. Back in the center, squat stance. And elongate the spine. Again, spine nice and long and upright. you need to widen your feet to let your elbows get in there, do so. You really want to open up the hips here. Hands come down. Bring your weight into the elbows. So my legs are on the outside, behind the elbows, letting me really open up the hips. Inguinal muscles in the groin. Come back up. And the spine up. Quick dragon spine. And shake it out. All right, we're going to go through that little mini mirror form. It's 4 moves to each side. Opening move, and then 4 moves to each side for a total of 9 very simple moves. They're repeated. It's, Taijiquan beginning, left and right, roll back and press, and immortal pounds and more. Then you repeat. Although it's Taijiquan reverse, deflecting and going the other way, deflecting right and left, roll back, press, and immortal pounds and more. Just kind of giving you a little mental mnemonic of the sequence. And then the opening sequence is the sleeping dragon awakens to find the root. So relax, sink down into the feet, tongue lightly touches the roof of the mouth. How's that Qigong going? You still have that? Probably lost it somewhere along the lines, right? I did. So I just noticed it, so I bring it back up for you guys. Get that gentle Qigong going. It's down, and we've got that first move. Our awareness goes to the feet. We've got that coming up the in channels of the legs. All the way to through the lower dantian to the middle dantian, out up to the center line, all the way up to the back way now. But the right and left channels, relax and descend. Yang Qi descends. Join it. And we've got Taiji beginning. Left. Roll back. Pounds more. Taiji reverse. Reflecting right. And left. Roll back. Press. Immortal pounds more. And close. One of the things you want to learn how to do is to feel how every change flows, creates more change until it flows out and a move is completed. It always comes from a change from within in your relationship to the ground and your own intention of action. Center flows through the whole body. whole body is all moving together, and yet it's got waves. The ocean is all moving together, and yet there are waves. We are the same. Okay? We should move in that same way. All right, let's flow through just the first side, and then we'll look at the next move and how to practice that one individual move in repetition like we did with these. When we did these, we practiced this Taiji beginning over and over again. Then we could practice deflecting left and right over and over again, right? Until we kind of really got it in the body. We'll do the same thing after the immortal pounds the mortar. So let's start from the very beginning. We'll go up to that immortal pounds the mortar and look at the next move. Tongue lightly touches the roof of the mouth, central equilibrium. Sleeping dragon awakens to fire. Taiji beginning. Left, right. Roll back. Cross. Split left. So as I receive and turn here, my left hand outreaches to receive. My right hand and right leg expand. I've got this inward spiral on this side, my left side, and an outward spiral on my right. And when I open, everything reverses. Shift to the right, turn to the right. And come back towards the center. And I'm going to come to the crossed arm position all the way through back into split again. So I can repeat this. Now in this split, I want to get the spiral outward here and inward above on this right side. Outward below, inward and up. Now, as a Qigong, we're really trying to work this spiral to really open up everything in here on this right side. From the low back, from this hip relationship and low back, all the way up through the shoulder. Same thing here. There is an inward spiral and an inward spiral down. So it's 3 yin, 1 yang. 1 yang, yin, yin. And even though this is going up, it's got an inward spiral. And it opens. Again, if I'm doing it as a Qigong, I'm trying to get maximum open, maximum open. Closed, closed. Now we've got 2. Less of that intense action. Round and spherical. But always paying attention to receiving and expanding. Which leg is expanding, which leg is receiving. Thank you for joining me today's live stream, Wuxing Long Pai, Qigong, Taijiquan, and Bagua. Obviously, we don't get into an awful lot of Bagua here. In this system, the Bagua is the sort of later training. First, you get all the functional elements of the Qigong, some of the basic Taiji, you start working into more complex Taiji, you refine your Qigong and your both internal and external Qigong methods, Wei and Neigongs that are trained as this. The meridian flow starts getting really understood. You develop that mental framework very powerfully, and then as your Taiji starts becoming more rounded and full and complete, and you work all the way through that long form, and you start working with the Bagua elements. But these Bagua elements are found in the most basic stuff here that we're doing, and you'll see them later reflected. For those of you that pursue that, I haven't made a lot of videos on the Bagua training yet, and that's in part just because I feel like, why rush ahead? Why do two things badly? Right? Until I've got a number of in-person students that I watch. There's a few of them that are starting to really work with the Bagua, and when I feel like they're kind of all on the same point, then I'll start making some videos for them to work with, and then you guys will benefit too. Thank you guys very much. For sure. If you'd like to support me in any way, just if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you have and you'd like to give me some kind of monetary support, you can go to my Ko-fi page. That's ko-fi.com/Occidental Taoist. And you can also go to my Facebook page. That's Facebook. I think it's Facebook.com/Occidental Taoist. You can just look up the Occidental Taoist on Facebook. You can find it. I've got live streams on there. You can also go to my Patreon page, which has some exclusive content for members. And you can join me. That's patreon.com/ you guessed it, Occidental Taoist. Thank you guys very much. Have yourself a wonderful day. Many blessings of radiant health and a peaceful, happy heart. Thank you.